All right, Psalm 4, let's call this one. You want to spin it one way, but it's really another in this psalm where David starts off by asking God to answer him. He calls him God of my righteousness, a theme that's going to carry forward probably throughout the book of Psalms, but definitely through the rest of these 7 chapters, as David is not appealing for a double standard, but he understands that God is going to judge him according to his righteousness or the integrity with which he follows God. But he knows he's not perfect, and so he's going to say, please be gracious to me as well, because he understands that his mistakes are going to require God to offer up some forgiveness for him to continue on with God in any kind of righteousness whatsoever. But he's going to go on from there to talk about some of his troubles, and they're going to come in the form of, like the title, spin, meaning he's going to go on to say in verse 2, O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? Verse 3 will say, but know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him, understanding that no matter what the spin about David is, his relationship with God, or the substance of what he is doing in service to God, keeps him in a situation where God still has an open ear to his prayer. And as much as I wanted to save this point for the end, I'm going to go ahead and pause there and say I can see myself in both of those situations, because there are times in life when we can fall into the temptation to spin the truth about who a person really is to fit our perspective on them. But on the other hand, there are times in life when we know what it's like to have the story spun about us, which would hopefully steer us away from going back down the path of twisting the narrative about other people. But to the degree we are enduring a twisted narrative about us, David is reminding us that the substance of our relationship is what determines whether or not God is keeping an open ear to the things that we are asking him to do, as he is going to go on to give us a relatively famous bit of encouragement that's repeated in the New Testament, where he says, be angry, but don't sin in your anger. As he is going to say, in those perplexing times, instead of responding to slander with more slander, be silent, ponder it on your bed, and God willing, God will give you insight into your situation and hopefully deliverance from the spin that might be circulating about you. As he is going to go on to say that as you ponder, continue to offer right sacrifices, reminding us of what he's already said before, that no matter what the spin is around you, God's attentiveness to the things you're asking of him has everything to do with whether or not you are actually walking with him in integrity and making the kind of sacrifices he expects of those who are actually serving him as he is, as opposed to the way they would like him to be. As he is going to go on to deal with the question that many ask, and that is, who will show us some good? And in the psalm where it seems that David is not at the peak of his powers or the greatest of times, he is saying that even in his current condition, God has the ability to give him more joy than when others are in the peak abundance of their grain and wine, saying that his ability to find actual security comes from God, who is able to give him peace even in the midst of the narrative spinning around him.